I'm Danny Black.
And I'm John Newman.
Welcome to Card Mensches.
What is going on? Episode 9 of Card Mensches. And as that opening said, I'm still John Newman. And to the right of me on the screen, he's still Danny Black. And it's Friday, 9 o'clock, and we're waiting for the regular crowd to shuffle in. Today's episode.
That's where we're opening. It's all downhill from there.
Yeah, anytime I can mix in a Billy Joel reference and change some lyrics to a song, I'm gonna do it. Today we're gonna talk about, baseball season obviously has started, Danny, and Topps made an announcement pertaining to debut players. We'll get into that a little bit into the show, but it's I don't do it as much as I used to do, but prospecting, right? Buying some cards, kind of stashing them away of guys we feel like will be good or great major leaguers, right? All-star potential, Hall of Fame potential, even further down the line. And so today we're going to kind of pick two guys each, kind of say why we like them, give a little sort of scouting report on them, and even tell you when their first appearance was on cardboard or chrome or both in many of these guys' cases, and give some tips, Danny, on how to, if you want to prospect and you're not doing it yet, some tips and techniques on how to do it and save a little money, hopefully, in the process of doing that.
And I think it's fair to say, first of all, good to be on with you again. I know I started off a little goofy, but it's I look forward to our Friday Card Mensches. It's nice, and I'm excited because both of us are total prospect geeks, and I don't think we've ever really done a modern prospect show. We've done Todd Van Poppel and Greg Jeffries, but I don't think we've ever really talked. I don't think we've ever really talked about how we buy prospects now.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that Jeffries haul to pay off, but
well, I told you weren't allowed to pick him as one of your prospects to invest in.
Yeah, no, I'm past that point. I still got a soft place in my heart, but I got two guys here. I'll even tease the fact that none of them are
Mets. I want to take a step back. Tell people where you live and how much exposure you have to the minor leagues, just to give an idea.
All right, so the AAA Syracuse Mets, and I was a Mets fan when they weren't the Syracuse Mets. They were Syracuse's AAA team's been the farm team for the Blue Jays, the Yankees way back when, and then most recently before the Mets, the Washington Nationals, and then I think 3 or 4 years ago became the Mets, and that was, like, for me, a big deal because the stadium is almost in walking distance from my house. Let me put it this way. I can hear the PA announcer talking, and if there's a fireworks night, I get all that fireworks. I can see it right from my back deck. Sometimes I'm back there with a cigar and watch the fireworks show from my house. So I'm very close to the Syracuse Mets. They have some serious prospects coming down here for at least right now. I will tease this. I picked two prospects for today's show, Danny. I could have went with Mets guys, but I didn't want to be the homer with doing this. So I picked two non-Mets guys, a little bit younger and maybe a little bit further away than, your Brett Beatty's, Mark Vientos, Ronnie Mauricio's, and that sort of thing. So I went a little deeper where you can still maybe pick up some cards of these two particular players and not break your bank necessarily.
Being an Oriole fan, I had so many choices of great prospects to talk about. I could have gone probably 25 prospects deep, but that's just how it is for the Orioles. I don't know if the Mets have that kind of talent. Being sarcastic. I did not pick an Oriole either. I didn't want to be a homer, so I'm with you there. I wanted to think outside the box. I did pick guys that are on the top 100 list. I wanted to make sure that they had cards that were available. So they are on the top 100, but on the list I used, and I used MLB Pipeline just to randomly pick numbers, they were both outside the top 40. So I tried to go down at least a little bit to make it something where there could still be a little bit of growth and rise, and part of my system, and I think we're going to talk about that, is looking for those opportunities.
Yeah, no doubt. I want to be honest with you. I don't know what numbers my prospects are. I didn't base it on anything other than I think these two particular players,
Hello, Stephen.
will could be potential superstars, right? Exercise with caution, but the talent is there. Whether the execution is remains to be seen, but the tool sets are there.
Well, before you give the names, talk about the process.
I like guys. I tend to like guys who are 5 tool guys, right? That don't do just one thing well, but kind of a plethora of things. They can run, they can play defense, they can hit, or at least at the levels they've been at have shown that they can hit. I like to go younger where they have some good size, but they really haven't stopped filling out where they can hit the weight room and add to their frame. And the reason I like five, obviously everyone likes 5 tool guys, so do scouts, and for the real reasons, right? But it's common sense. But a 5 tool guy, where if he's lacking in one thing, something else might keep him in the big leagues while he works on something that's deficient. If you're not a 5 tool guy and what your tools aren't performing very well, that ends careers maybe a little faster than a 5 tool guy. So I tend to go that direction most of the time, not all the time. I will say these two particular players will sort of fit that description for today's show. But that's generally uh, what I look for, Danny. The other thing, I don't really take stats seriously until I see it in double A. When they can do it in double A. Now, that being said, I will buy prospects who haven't even got to double A yet. So I don't want to make it sound like,
But you
because if
might
you
wait
wait
till
that long, sometimes the bus has already left the station. But I don't really get too excited, I guess is what I'm trying to say, until I see him do it on that level. If you ask the question, why double A? Why not single A? Why not rookie ball? Because double A, that's where all the talent, that's where a lot of the bonus babies are, and some of those bigger names and first round picks, and that they're playing against that upper echelon, which is what they're going to, if they're going to make the major leagues, right? They're going to be playing with the best that baseball has to offer. So,
and I'll defend you on that. That's usually the pretty much the youngest league that you'll get promoted to the majors from. So
yeah.
that's your kind of your first league where you're playing against guys that you are sure are going to be major leaguers. So that's a I haven't looked at it that way, but I like that rule.
Yeah, and it's just it's my rule. It doesn't have to be anyone else's rule. But whatever works for you. Everyone, you ask people who prospect, Danny, they might give you a different answer. That's just my sort of template. I mean, what do you do? I guess is I'll turn the question to you.
So I guess in general, I mean, we're both looking obviously for guys we think are going to develop into good players. What do I use to kind of figure that out? I like guys. Well, first of all, a couple of cardinal rules for me. I don't invest in pitchers or catchers. Um, Historically, that is going to hold generally true, although nothing's 100%. So I try not to invest in pitchers and catchers as prospects. I like middle infielders with a good hit tool, and on a 20 to 80 scales, preferably a 60 hit tool if I'm buying a younger player, because that's the thing that's going to carry them. And so many guys have a kind of that average plus hit tool. once you get to 60, you're getting to a much more advanced hitter, even at a younger age. So I like it, the hit tool, but I also want somebody who's athletic. So that's why I said I like the middle infielders. To your point, there's a chance they can become center fielders, second baseman. There's more of a chance to move around and stay on the field defensively. But if you can't hit, eventually you're going to get phased out. So for me, that far and away is the number one tool. And then I like to see somebody that's not too old for their league. If a guy is 26 in Double A, maybe you look at those numbers differently than if they're 19 in Double A. So that's kind of those are kind of my general rules of thumb. Now, to be specific, if we're talking about specifically investing in cards, I really, really hold true to the pitcher and catcher rule. More so than I might even give a little bit more on if I like a player for another reason. But the numbers on pitchers and catchers, I just don't like putting my money behind.
Yeah, I have a pitcher rule, and I sometimes break it, and my own rule. And sometimes when I break it, it sort of works out. Two guys recently I broke that rule on is, and I've talked about this before, I think on my own podcast, but Tristan McKenzie and Hunter Green, and they're both opening day starters. Well, one's one's nicked up in Tristan, but he'll be back shortly. But they're both slated as their top pitchers on their respective teams. They both throw hard there, and they both had some success last year. But pitchers are definitely a risky proposition. I tend to stay away from them, but every so often I'm tempted out of the basement and buying a bunch of a pitcher. Those two are just the recent ones I broke my own rule on. Catchers, I don't necessarily have that rule, Danny, but I get it because generally a catcher, what's the only other most of the time? I don't want to paint with a broad brush. Most of the time, the only other position a catcher can go to is generally first base, right? They're kind of pigeonholed into those two positions. We've seen what can happen to a catcher when he can't get it done behind the backstop. With a recent example of Gary Sanchez,
Yeah,
who I believe is out of baseball now, and
was a huge prospect.
Huge prospect playing in the Yankees starting catcher, an all-star, and I can tell you, I sold a lot of Gary Sanchez stuff in New York, and it's probably a good thing because right now, those I hate to say it, but those folks that bought Gary Sanchez, the music looks like it's stopped there.
Can I defend my catcher rule just a little bit because
Sure.
since I stay away from them, one, because it's hard for their bat to catch up with their glove when they make it to their majors. It usually takes a couple more years for the bat to catch up. Typically, these are all typically. Number two, they typically don't play as many games per year because there's usually, I guess now we call this load management, but they try to save the wear and tear on the body a little bit. And so the total stats don't usually add up to other positions. Now, do they do things on the field? Was Yadier Molina a valuable player? Yes. Were his cards valuable? No. So, rarely do catchers' cards keep that value beyond the kind of that prospect first year or two status. I'm an Oriole fan. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope Adley Rutschman is Johnny Bench, and that rule goes out the window. But I would say peak value in Adley seems to be the last 12 months or so.
Well, the other side of that coin is you kind of mentioned it in what you just said there is catchers can get in the Hall of Fame with numbers that another position wouldn't even be considered Hall of Famers. The bar is a little bit lowered because of the wear and tear and everything you just spoke on. So guys like Buster Posey, Joe Mauer, Yadier Molina, like you mentioned, if you took their names off and just handed their stats to somebody, most people would say these are not Hall of Famer stats, but all three will probably be in the Hall of Fame together at some point potentially because of the position they play, and
The
so
two, the
that's the
two,
advantage of being a catcher. If you
but how
will,
many Hall of Fame catchers do people really collect? Yogi Berra and Johnny Bench?
yeah, there's probably a few more. Carlton Fisk might be
Really?
another one. Mike Piazza,
No,
you
no,
know.
no, nobody outside of your house collects Mike Piazza.
No, you'd be surprised. Don't be
No,
hating
no,
on
no, 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 no.
Bill Dickey.
Johnny Bench, Yogi Berra, Mike Piazza is not in that conversation.
Yeah, we'll
You,
get
you,
up
you
a different
disagree.
train
All right.
station there.
Since we're Mensches, we will politely disagree. How's that? Okay. So we've built this up. We have our systems. These are general rules. Feel free to put questions in the comments or in the chat or in the YouTube comments. We'll try to answer them. You want to reveal your first player?
Yeah, I'll reveal my first player. Let me just say we're picking two players each. That we're not saying these two are the only ones we like. I can make a long list of guys I like, but for the length of the show and what the format of the show, we went with two each. So these are two of my particular favorites that are not Mets guys. To get away from being a homer, let me go with my first guy. He's 19 years old. He got a 1.5 million dollar bonus. He batted 301 last year with 23 extra base hits, stole 18 bases in the 40 games in the rookie league he was assigned to. Um, he's a little bit of a pitch chaser, but he's young at 19. They can work that out, and he's kind of he's 6'3", and he's been compared to a player in the organization that he plays for in Rafael Devers. So obviously it's the Red Sox, and my first pick's going to be Miguel Bleis. That's Bleis for those who want to know how it's spelled. And he's, again, we talked about that 5 tool. I told you how he stole half as many bases of games played. Again, these stats were done at rookie ball, so take them with a grain of salt. But he also did it as a 19-year-old young kid too, so also that has to be considered. And the scouts, he's 19 and 6'3" already, and he's going to put more muscle on his frame. So I think he's going to hit for more power than he's currently at the level he's at. And so I think and I like this pick. I like to pick guys that aren't really necessarily on the cusp of making the major leaguers right this year or maybe next year, maybe 2 to 3 years away. My other guy, which I won't mention now, is a little bit closer. Matter of fact, I think he actually played a little bit last year, but is a little bit closer than Miguel is. But Miguel Bleis is my first guy, Red Sox. And you mentioned it when you were talking about kind of what you look for, right? Guys that can play infield and outfield, right? That's always sort of a plus. That way, if they struggle defensively, if they're an infielder and they struggle a little bit defensively on the infield where someone else is better suited there, they're still not out of the lineup. They may just be converted to an outfielder. And I like that sort of versatility, that multi-positional potential. Actually, both of these guys qualify under that as well. So that's my first guy.
I'm going to talk baseball card hobby perspective real quick on Miguel Bleis. He's rated on MLB Pipeline as 93. And you and I both talked about him. I would have picked him if you didn't.
Yeah.
I think he's a fantastic pick. But more importantly, at 93, his card price will go up. If he continues to play like you and I both expect him to, he moves up that rankings, and so much of the prices on the cards for these guys come based on these rankings. When they break the top 100, the price goes up, top 50, top 10, whatever it is. So I love Miguel Bleis as a pick for a number of reasons. So,
and real quick too, just for people who want to go look for him, his first appearance is in 2021 Bowman Chrome. has autos, all that colors, just like with normal prospects. So that's where you'll find them in 2021, Bowman. And listen, it doesn't hurt when you play in a big city, or if he turns out to be a star in Boston, that light's going to be a little brighter than maybe somewhere else too. So
Absolutely. So, can I give you my first
yep,
one?
yep, it's your turn.
All right. So this was a guy, a player I actually saw play last year in person a couple times. And sometimes you see somebody on the field and they just look different than everybody else. And that's one of the cool things about minor league games. You get up close, and the guys who are going to be major leaguers just seem to stand out. For me, that was Colson Montgomery, shortstop in the White Sox system. You're 21 years old, big kid. I want to say something like 6'2", 6'3". But he's a shortstop with a 60 hit tool, a 55 field, and a 55 overall. So you're talking about an athletic guy. Easily could move to a corner infield and have the bat to go with it, but athletic enough to stay at shortstop at his size and his ability. 21 years old, first round pick. So you're hitting the majors young. His first card is actually the Bowman first is 2022 Bowman Chrome. And I'm a huge fan of his. His price has shot up a little bit because his talent just seems to be overwhelming. But if you can get him now or get him before the season starts, don't buy him because I want him. So ignore everything I just said. But I'm a big fan of Montgomery, so he would definitely be my first recommendation, or the first person that I like.
Yeah, I've read the scouting reports on him. I didn't get to see him in person as you did, so I can't go that far. But everything I've read about him, like you just said, will be a surprise if he doesn't at least get to the major leagues. He's got the size, the tool set, and listen, shortstop. I think you tell me if you agree, Danny. Shortstop is like football, right? Quarterbacks to position. Shortstop is kind of like the quarterback of baseball. If you are a shortstop in the major leagues and are producing and are a great player, there's a little extra shine pertaining to that because of the position you play. And so that doesn't hurt to be a shortstop and highly touted. Nothing wrong with that pick. I think that's probably my advice with him would be if you are going to buy him, the sooner probably the better, because even at 21, that doesn't sound old, and it's not old, but he could
He's
be,
knocking on the door.
yeah, he could be in Chicago sooner than probably the four guys, the other three guys we're gonna talk about tonight. So yeah, I like that pick. It's I don't want to say it's safe pick. I don't, but he's definitely on the track to the major leagues, which is, I mean, that's what you want, right? That's
Yep.
what we're talking
I
about.
mean,
So
I mean, I should be so good as to look at a prospect list and pick every major leaguer.
yeah,
I, yeah,
keep in mind, folks, this is not horse racing where you throw $10 at a 7-1 shot, you get more. I guess you could say they'll cost you less on a longer shot, so the payoff is more, but it's probably not the best play. It might be fun to do that with $2 or $5 at the track. It's a lot riskier in the
this
baseball.
this is a different way to hobby. This is a different way to PC. The breaks are popular for prospects a lot of times. We don't personally go into breaks, but this is a different way to enjoy the hobby. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But I know for a lot of people, especially around Baltimore the last couple of years, people are getting into the Bowman first very heavily.
Yep, no doubt, no doubt. You want me?
Okay,
To give my second guy?
I was about to say, give us the one to buy.
Yeah. Now this guy's probably a little more known. He's not that Miguel Blyce is a secret. A lot of people know about him too. This guy's probably a little more known. He's a couple years older at 21 years old, like Colson Montgomery. He's been compared to O'Neill Cruz for comparisons. And one scouting report I read predicted he would actually be better player than O'Neal Cruz. O'Neal Cruz, as you know, is young too and hasn't done it yet consistently. So, you know, the jury's still out on really both of these guys. To give you a comparison, this guy, you know, I talked about the $1.5 million bonus Miguel Bleis got. Uh, this guy, I almost said his name. I'm kind of like trying to build up the suspense. Got $65,000 bonus in 2018 to sign. So a lot less bonus. He wasn't a highly touted player when he was signed. He has developed into that player that people are predicting. Now he's 5'2", and he's frankly one of the best prospects in baseball. And he first appeared in 2022 Bowman as well. And that's Ellie De La Cruz, long name and highly touted, and another player that should add to his frame. And so, as good as he is now, that could be even more impressive by the time you see him in the big leagues. And he's not super cheap, but he's also not super expensive. And if he turns out to be the player that many predict he will, you're still going to be all right if you bought him now or in the near future. So, he's closer to the big leagues than Miguel Bleis is. So, so I went with one a little closer to the bigs, the end of the other, kind of the cover both spectrums.
I'm going to say if you're going to tell me Colson Montgomery is an easy one, then Ellie De La Cruz. You might as well pick Jimmy Fox. I think he's got a chance. I mean, De La Cruz is 6'5". For people who don't know, when you say comparisons to O'Neal Cruz, that's one of the big reasons you're talking about a middle infielder at that height. And to give you an idea, Cal Ripken was 6'4". So you're talking about 6'5" and 6'7" with those guys. So I like to pick a De La Cruz. I think you went a little bit chalk there, but
a little bit. I'll give you that. It was just too much. There was too much there to not really pick them. You know, it was just, obviously you want to pick players that you think, are going to get it done, right? And he's slated to do that.
I'll be frank. I have a client selling Ellie De La Cruz right now, so I'm a big fan. I'm rooting for you to be right. I think more than any other episode that we've had. So, I hope this is a pick sure to go right. Let's put it that way.
All right. Well, we'll see. He's highly touted. So,
well, now I feel like the pressure's on my last guy, because if my last guy's not as good as Ellie De La Cruz, then I haven't done justice here. I'm picking a player who fits my criteria: middle infielder, shortstop, 60 hit tool, 55 field, 55 overall, athletic guy, 6 feet tall, 21 years old, international signing, Colorado Rockies shortstop Adiel Amador. I think he is somebody when you have more walks than strikeouts at 19 years old. That says something. So I love his hit tool. I love his overall athleticism. I think he stays up the middle, whether it's second, short, or center. And if he has more walks and strikeouts at 19, what is he going to be in a couple of years? I mean, you're talking about the majors by 21 or 22 as an up the middle defender. I think there's just all the value in the world. I know his cards do go for decent money right now, but the ceiling on him could be very high. People talked about Jordan Walker when Jordan Walker was ranked in the 50s for prospects, and in the last week you see what's happened to him or Anthony Volpe. So in a year or two, I think Amador could be one of those guys.
I'm gonna make a confession here. I don't know much about Amador. I've heard the name, but I don't know him in the same way you do. And that's the age, right? It seems there's something about 19, right? That if a guy is playing well at 19, ears perk up, people start to take notice. Like you said, at 19, if you have that sort of plate discipline where you're walking more than striking out, that's a good sign at a very early age and early progression to the big leagues. Because usually it's the opposite. Even the best players are trying to hit home run hit 2 home runs with one at bat, and so to have that sort of discipline to play within himself, not swing at bad pitches. Obviously, if you're walking more than you're striking out, you're not swinging at bad pitches. So it means you have plate discipline. It means you have a good batter's eye. And at 19, if you're doing that at 19, that usually doesn't regress. It usually gets better into your 20s and 30s. Then it starts maybe to go downhill after that. But
Well,
so yeah,
I can tell you after my 30s, I've regressed a lot and gone downhill.
yeah, I think you and me both. And he's a guy. I'm an honest guy. I did not know much about him. I've heard the name, but now I'm gonna have to do some research myself and see what all the fuss is about, so to speak. So
Well, I'm glad I could come up with one because you're a tough one with prospects. So I'm glad I had one that you can look into.
yeah, I like that. Someone I off my radar that now I probably should put on my radar. Now I did more prospecting a few years back. I think like a lot of stuff in the hobby, right? There's a lot more
Well,
people.
John, at your age, are you talking about the gold rush?
uh, uh, Thanks for joining us tonight. No, but I think we talked about this off the air. I think there's a lot more people doing it, and I think it's made it a little harder to navigate. Right, when there's less people doing it, you have an easier time. But when there's more people, right, it's going to drive the prices up a little more. You're going to get into bidding wars if you're going the auction route. So I've done a little bit less. I still do it. I think it's a little more difficult to do it. I think there's more people paying attention. I think there's more people reading scouting reports rather than just listening to me and you predict something or talk about a player. So the pool has a lot more people swimming in it, so the room to navigate is a little tighter. But still fun to do, and I still do it. And there's 4 names that can maybe show up on other people's list. And that's the beauty. I think not to pat ourselves on the back here, Danny, but we're talking about guys we like, right? Like some people don't like to do that because they don't want to let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. And listen, there's 100 prospects, right? That's why there's a top 100 prospect list. So there's 96 that we didn't mention tonight. There's people who may not like, you know, uh, you know, these some of these guys too. They might find holes in their game, especially at 19. Right? Again, like I said, I'm not really starting to believe until I see it at the double A level.
Let me just get caught up real quick. Shout out hello to Adam Palmer
And
and U.S. Sports Cards asked any guesses on who might be the next 100-mile-per-hour pitcher like Hunter Green? Well, if you're talking about minor leaguers, I'll give you a name from the Orioles, Grayson Rodriguez. I've seen him touch 100 on a regular basis as a starting pitcher, which like Hunter Green is phenomenal. Whether or not he pitches and sits there, we'll see. As he's a young guy trying to get his command, but he can throw easy 100 if he wants to.
yeah, the name escapes me. And I know that's Dan Ryan, by the way, who I believe is a White Sox guy. There's a guy in their system. Like I said, I apologize for not knowing the name, that is throwing that hard at a pretty young age. I think he's just got to sort of hone the control, but he could be on the fast track to the Windy City as well. And again, you can probably find it out. I can look it up even myself. Um, uh, No, it's not Garrett Crochet. It's someone else. I think it's a not American born player. I think he's from the Dominican Republic or another country. And I feel bad because I usually do know the name. And here's the other thing about 100-mile-an-hour pitchers, Danny. That used to
Yep.
be a huge. It's not as there's more hurlers throwing 100 than ever before in baseball. It's still a big number. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
Less do than do, but it used to be, years ago that was like huge, right? Like hitting 100, and we're seeing guys like Aroldis Chapman hit, 104, 106. Sometimes there's more people throwing uh, at that level than ever before, but it's still impressive. As a former pitcher who could only get it into, on my best day in the high 80s, I'm impressed with that kind of velocity.
I could be wrong. Sean Burke might be the pitcher you're talking about, but I know he tops out somewhere in the upper
Yeah,
nines.
it might be. It might be. It's no one I'm like,
Oh,
buying or.
put it in the comments on YouTube because I don't feel like googling it. So how's that? Um,
So
well, that was cool. I'd like to actually. This was much fun. I'd love to do another episode on prospects if you're game with that another time.
yeah. We can even do something mid-season with guys that are even on the brink. When it comes to September and the extended call-ups, maybe we can do a sort of a show where they're on players that are closer to to do it. So, Mookie Chilson again. I love that name. Alex Ramirez in the Met system. Um,
Yep.
the Mets. I'm proud of the Mets as a Mets fan, right? They traditionally a lot of times will trade their system away or a good percentage, and Cohen's built this team to win now without mortgaging the future. So you've got your Beatties, Vientos, Mauricio, Parada, Alex Ramirez. I do not know much about him. And here's the bad thing: living in Syracuse, I'm paying more attention to like double and triple A because they're so close to coming here that I'm not looking at like the Brooklyn Cyclones and the lower systems like I used to. So
Well, Mookie, I don't want to let you down, but my remembrance on Alex was that his bat was a little bit of a weak spot, and he's still a young kid, so there's plenty of time for those adjustments. But if you weren't with us before, personally, I like to see a hit tool from a young age. So for me, to Dan, before I did take Colson Montgomery as one of my prospects. And for Mookie, one of the reasons I might hesitate on Alex Ramirez is the hit tool because they've got a ton of guys in their system with a better hit tool if you're looking for a Mets
yeah,
player.
yeah. I mean, they got another catcher, for they got Francisco Alvarez and Parada's a catcher. Like one of those guys is either going to move to first. Maybe they trade Alonso at some point in the next few years. Who knows? Maybe they trade Alvarez or Parada and keep Alonso. Like there's going to be, you got to remember there's prospects that play similar positions, and that's where those trades occur, right? Well, we like this guy and not this guy as much. We're moving off of him, and so
See,
you never know.
I like Parada as a hitter. I think he's going to move out of catcher. So I think you're exactly correct.
Yeah. So there's so many variables, and they may make it and be bona fide, all stars, and it may be on a different team. It may just be a change of scenery because they're blocked by an established, big league veteran or someone even a couple years. I don't even want to say a veteran, but maybe someone a couple years older that the organization feels they found their guy in that guy. So there's sometimes we've seen guys become all stars on different teams than what drafted them than who drafted them. So it may be like that with some of these Mets guys because I can't remember the last time they've had this many prospects. It's been a long time, so it's a good problem to have, and you have the same problem as an Orioles fan. That's one of the probably the two best systems in the league.
Well, I'll be gracious and let you pretend that you're anywhere near the Orioles in the rankings. All right. Anything else to add to that? Because I'm legally
Real
obligated.
quick, I know we got to get into our last segment here. We didn't get to spend much time on it. Question I get asked, I'm sure you get asked, Danny, is all right. We know who we want to invest in. And I know people don't like that word all the time. We know who we want to buy, we want to stash and stock up. How do we do it now? What are the best ways? So, real quick, I wish we could have spent a little more time, maybe in a future episode. Right? You mentioned auctions, buying a team. So, if you know Miguel Bleis is on the Red Sox and you're buying into a 2022 Bowman rip, you buy the Red Sox and see how many come out of that break, whether it's
But
a
don't buy
half
into breaks.
case.
Don't buy into breaks.
Yeah, I know, but you're gonna at least get some base cards, and I'm still a base card guy. I know people hate base cards. I'm not one of those people, right? Obviously, your auction site, right, more and not just eBay. All your other platforms have lots of them, or an auto, a numbered, colored parallel, so you can check your auction sites. Check your Facebook selling groups, right? There a lot of times you don't have to buy in the breaks. Someone else has done that. Now they're trying to kind of cut their losses, right? So
Yep.
you can buy their losses. They bought into a break hoping to hit, a low numbered parallel. It didn't work out for them, and they're just trying to recoup something so it doesn't sting as bad. So I've bought in prospects like that. I've bought in 20 card lots from a half case, or 50 or 60 card lots from a full case break of a player. So that's an option too. Facebook groups, and just even advertising. Hey, I'm collecting so and so. What do you got? Right? Just kind of putting a wanted post. I'm looking for this guy, and people will tell you, hey, I pull. You might get someone who doesn't even know a lot. Hey, I pulled the card of the guy you're looking for. Give me $20 and you can have it. I'll help you out. So there's a lot of ways to acquire these cards, and I see Dan Ryan says would love a bounce back segment with
How.
Robert.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Finish
the
that.
guys that are kind of were burning bright, had an injury or two, and kind of people sort of forgot about them. If you forgot about Lewis Robert, I'm not talking to Dan, but just in general, I'm a Lewis Robert guy, so I got a lot of
Does
his.
John have cards to sell for you?
I got a box over there. I'm not making this up, with quite a bit of Lewis Robert, and then I won't sell it now. Why would I? Right? Because I believe he's going to be quite the player. Barring got to stay on the field, but if he does that, he's a player. Eloy Jimenez, same team. I know. People sort of forgot about him. This guy is the real deal when he's healthy. So, and there's a lot of guys. It would make a good episode. Maybe that's another one down the line. We'll have to keep.
I was about to say off air. This is one of my favorite areas to actually buy cards in.
Yeah.
Is the forgotten comeback prospect. I think you can get Wander Franco cheap right now. I mean, even a guy like Kyle Lewis, that I'm Mr. Kyle Lewis this offseason. And so we'll see if he can at least have a good April, and but who knows? We'll do another episode on that. All right, you ready to move forward?
Yeah, let's go. I think we've got the nice thing about this week's show. I think we got a couple future episodes out of it too. It sounds like so.
Yeah, I think we can go long form, as they say.
Experience, quality, consistency, and the quickest turnaround times in the grading industry. We are proud to partner with SGC Grading. Check them out at www.gosgc.com.
John, you texted me today. You got something back.
Oh well, they're not back yet. They're on their
Well,
way back.
they're any day now.
Any day, any day. The quickest, listen, just like the commercial read said, right? Quickest turnaround time. I sent that out on Tuesday, and I could have it back as early as tomorrow, and definitely by Monday at the latest. So that's crazy, man. And I'm a big SGC guy. I know they sponsor this show. They sponsor my show. I don't care if they didn't sponsor. I wouldn't change my opinion of them, and so yeah, they're right now they're the blazing gun in the West, right? No one's got a quicker trigger right now than they do. So
SGC, home of the 9.5. Okay, and moving on to our favorite way to end every episode.
Welcome to the failure segment, where John and Danny share their picks sure to go wrong.
So we got to talk a little NCAA Final Four picks, so we can finish embarrassing ourselves like everybody else on this year's bracket. Please don't even bother looking at previous episodes' picks. We did we did no better than your brackets. We absolutely got destroyed as well. So with all that being said, as John likes to remind you, these are picks to not follow.
Especially this year. Listen, no one anyone that says, "Oh, I picked all four of these Final Four teams," they are lying. Just know that they are lying.
If they said they picked two of them, they're lying,
They're
John.
lying.
That's what this year is.
The highest seed in this Final Four is a 3 seed. Okay, so not that means doesn't mean you can't have one of them. None of the four picks, my Final Four picks that I made on this very show, none of them are here. A couple of them bowed out at the round of 8. They were close in Gonzaga and Texas, but I had none of these teams in my Final Four. So I was 0 for 4. I did not watch a ton of college basketball this year. I typically watch more. So again, with what we're about to pick, maybe even pick the opposite and go to DraftKings and bet against us, and you might win some money then.
That's actually, I think we just figured out a new betting strategy: fade the Mensches.
Yeah.
So
hedge the Mensches.
Right, exactly. All right, so let's put this up here. And this is the lines I've pulled off at ESPN. We have San Diego State as a 2.5-point favorite over Florida Atlantic, and UConn is a 5.5-point favorite over Miami. You want to go first? Or you want me to go first on this?
I don't think it matters because I think we're both going to screw this up. It's whatever order we want to go. Go ahead. I'll let you go first. First.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm going to screw this up, so I'll screw it up quickly here. I actually like San Diego State. I like them to finish their run out, and I'm going to take Miami on the upset. So I'm going to go San Diego State, given the 2.5. Miami taking the 5.5, but I will take Miami on the money line as well. And I'll take a Miami San Diego State with a Miami win in the championship.
All right, man. How about FAU? Both San Diego State and FAU, right?
Who?
Cinderellas, right?
Who?
Yeah, right. They're playing with house money, right? It's hard to pick against a Florida Atlantic right now the way they're playing. But I'm going to be similar to you. If not, I think San Diego State. I think the magic has to run out for an underdog at some point. I think San Diego State wins, and I'm going to take. I look at this UConn Miami matchup. These are actually two pretty teams that are playing very, very well now. While they may not have been predicted to be this far, they are actually earned their way here. Beat some great competition. UConn coached by Hurley and Larriega in Miami. You got a young up-and-coming coach and a proven veteran coach. I'm going to go with the veteran coach in this matchup, much like you did. I don't know if that's why you did it, but I'm going to take Miami to cover and win outright on the money line, like you said. So I'm going to say Miami, San Diego State in the final on Tuesday, and I think it's Tuesday, and usually is. And who would have predicted that, right? And if anyone would have told you it would be Miami and San Diego State, you would have like, okay, man, here's a specimen cup. I need you to go in that bathroom and provide a sample, and we're going to send this out for testing, right? So, listen, I like this, right? How many years in college basketball was it always those 5 to 8 powerhouse teams, right? Your Dukes, Kentucky, Arizona's, that sort of thing, and you kind of knew, you could if you had 7 or 8 teams you could pick, you'd get all of the Final Four, right? And I think that era's gone, and I kind of like that. As someone, in Syracuse here, with the Syracuse Orange, they had a terrible year this year. Next year, they could be in the Final Four with the landscape of college basketball, what it is today, with the NIL, with the transfer portal, players leaving for the NBA very early. That's why we have these sort of matchups.
Well, it's also a change in the guard. There's no more Coach K. I mean, there's Tom Izzo's getting up there. Jim Boeheim's retiring, so some of that I think coincides with the NIL and all of that. So, all right, well, we've gone almost 1 hour here in our half an hour show.
Well, you want to real quick talk about the Topps announcement with the go and kind of tying it back in with the prospecting.
Sure, absolutely. We forgot to talk about that before. That was a big announcement. You want to share?
I'll set it up. We don't have to spend a lot of time. We'll kind of go out on this, Danny. Topps announced that their big announcement was that every rookie player in his first game in the major league will have a MLB debut patch on his uniform for that occasion. That patch will be taken off and then used in Topps cards. Now, what we don't know is what products you're going to find this. We don't know, is it going to be one card with the whole patch? Are they going to, piece it out and make maybe 5 cards? All questions that remain to be answered. But let's just talk about what we think, kind of our thoughts on the concept, right? I think we'll make the assumption that these will be autograph cards. So in a sense, they will be, pure RPAs, right? Rookie patch autos. And think about the provenance of the game. Let's say, so we'll use a guy we talked about or you mentioned already, in Anthony Volpe, right? So he made his Yankee debut the other day. That patch is going to be on card or cards. We don't know if it's one or multiple. But let's just say it's one. Let's just use it. Let's say they take the whole patch. They make one Anthony Volpe, major league debut patch auto card. Let's say Anthony Volpe has a similar career to Derek Jeter, becomes a Hall of Fame Yankee shortstop. Think about this card now, many, many moons later from now, right? The significance of that card, especially if it's a 1-on-1. Let's make it a 1-on-1 until we know to the contrary. Think about, that's a card that's going to be probably sitting in the case at the National, 25 years from now, and people buzzing about it. Hopefully I'm still around. Maybe you're pushing me in a wheelchair to see it, but
and as an Oriole fan, I hope it's not Anthony Volpe. I hope it's somebody else who made the major league debut. But so I think it's awesome. But can I tell you one thing I saw just to might clarify your point?
All right, go ahead.
It looked really tiny on the uniform, like it's going to be a 1-card patch.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I noticed to your point, and which I think in some ways is cooler. It becomes like the superfractor. And
yeah,
but it's
1-on-1.
But it's from that day, that time.
It's from think about, and I don't want to make this segment any longer than it has to be, but think about if, we talked about this off there. Think about, and I know it wasn't invented yet. No one was even thinking along those lines. But can you imagine had they done these in the 50s and 60s? Can you
Oh,
imagine a Mickey Mantle 1 of 1 rookie patch auto? What, that would bring if something like that was in play from those days, right? Well, it's still baseball, right? I know technology's better, but there's still, if they're making 1-on-1s and these players become legendary, and some of them are gonna. That's how it works. Not all of them, but there's gonna be some that have,
I mean,
legendary All-Star Hall of Fame careers, and like you said, that patch is provenance, not maybe we think it is from that debut. You can watch that game and see that patch in action, and now you own it if you own the card, along with the auto and everything else that comes with it. I think it's, I know we like to beat up Tops a lot of times, and deservedly so. I gotta give them credit on this one. This one is, I think it's a great move, and I mean, even people who think I've heard some people be sort of critical of it. Even those ones that are critical, if they're opening a Tops pack and they can pull this, do you think they're going to be disappointed? Even the harshest critic will be very happy to own one of these. If and that's the question: how are these going to be distributed? Right? Is it going to be a redemption? Is the card going to, you know? going to be in the pack, and it's going to be fun to kind of track these, right?
well, hopefully they're distributed out of my eBay account to buy it. So.
But it's going to be fun to track these. Like, no one has claimed ownership of this car. Is it still, if they are distributed in a product, it's still somewhere remaining? Obviously we know what happens with 1-on-1 cards, right? There's going to could be bounties placed on it. Hey, the Volpe, I'll give $500,000
Can you
if you pull the
imagine what that
Volpe.
bounty would be? Yeah. I mean, now you're getting into a whole nother level of you're almost creating a flawless or national treasures for baseball.
And I got asked today from a few different people, Danny, like, John, how do you think these are getting distributed? How do we get it? And I don't know. It could be a redemption thing. It could be, how do we know Topps is not making their version of Flawless or National Treasures? It's obviously not going to be called that, right? But it's going to be something
it
along.
could be a premium Bowman product.
Yeah, maybe Bowman, Bowman Pristine, or I don't know, whatever they did, Bowman Elite, right? Whatever they, yeah, it's a great point, right? By Dan. I can see players trying to own their 1-on-1, right?
Sure.
And they're gonna have more. They're gonna probably have more money than most people, maybe not everyone, bidding on the card.
Think how cool it is if Volpe put a bounty on his own card.
Yeah.
Now, how much do you want to pull that card?
Yeah.
I mean,
plus, you don't have to just take money from them. You can say, hey, I want this much money. I want, 10 signed bats. I want a signed glove. I want some batting glove. I want some.
How's he going to get all that from Adley Rutschman?
So, this really is going to be, listen, you don't have to like it, but listen, for years, right, Topps was sort of sitting on their hands and they were maybe lacking a little innovation. Kudos for them doing something here. I mean, these cards are going to be in high demand. Let's just call it like it is, right? You don't have to like the premise of it, but I like it. I think it's smart on their part. I think it's going to bring a lot of attention, a lot of buzz, not just to Topps and Fanatics, but to the hobby too. This is going to bring a lot of attention to the hobby. You're gonna see this on news shows. And I'm not talking about hobby news shows. I'm talking about regular news, just like we saw in the Crescendo. Like, hey, this auction, Mantle, $5.6 million. We're gonna see that again with these cards. But to do it with a new release is harder. It's easier said than done, and I think they found a way to do it. And so kudos to Tops and Fanatics for thinking outside the box a little bit here and coming up with this.
But the truest thing you said is we probably could do an episode just on that patch, because I
Yeah,
would
no
I
doubt.
would love to have Hank Aaron's debut patch off the field. I mean, I mean, it goes
Think
without
about listen. I'm a Jackie Robinson guy.
right. It goes without saying.
Can you imagine if this existed in 1948 or 47, right? A Jackie Robinson's first game, the patch off his uniform in a card. Like,
as
that's
a
insane.
as a wise man once said, forget about it.
Yeah. Well, I don't have, I wouldn't be owning that. If I sold everything I had, I wouldn't have enough money. So, it's, yeah, and Dan brings up the upper deck with the 23-24 going with the outburst golds, which will be one
Yep.
of ones for the first time ever. It's just funny that they're doing it on the Connor Bedard's rookie year,
Not
and
not a
talk about a
coincidence.
bounty, right? Like we talked about the other night, there's going to be a bounty on that outburst gold Connor Bedard, and what that bounty is, we'll have to wait and see. But the hobby is there's some interesting storylines coming up in the next few years, to say the very least.
Well, and I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Hobby News Daily launching tomorrow. If you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're listening to the podcast form, it is up and running. Get your morning dose of your podcast on your Hobby News Daily Morning Minute, original writing, and more of the both of us and a whole team of I think we have 15 writers right now, and links
And
to some
growing.
and growing it, and links to some of the best content creators around the hobby. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Appreciate the great show, guys, from Hodges. As always, no, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Newman.
We went a little overtime, but that's okay. It was worth it.
We don't fit in one size fits all. We are a special size. So on that note, wait. I'm gonna show this as we play ourselves out. This is my wife found my Billy Joel concert ticket with Billy Joel guitar pick from 2009, and John with his Billy Joel and Elton John, if I'm correct, tickets. So say goodbye, John.
Goodbye, John.